Like this meeting with I believe. I believe. The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this is the formal budget hearing in general session. Correct? Yes, it is. So 2.0 formal budget hearing concerning the 2025-26 operating budget. We need an approval of the May 20th formal budget minutes.
Member Smith motions we approve the May 2025 formal budget minutes.
Member Sable seconds.
Any discussion?
I'll just say I thought the process went very well. Thank you for all the work you guys have done. Wasn't just that meeting, but everything leading up to it.
Thank you. Yeah. Big kudos to Sam and the effort and Danny, the efforts they put in, but
I'd like to mention that I had to go to the doctor the next day for whiplash.
Because of Gary.
Board member right here, but it was good whiplash. So thank you for that, Gary. Inside joke.
Yeah, that's my thought.
that's one thing I didn't change the budget numbers, except for what you approved. But I did these items that are in yellow were just where monies were moved between 1,000 and 2,000, so it's all in the same fund group. But because it wasn't giving us really any leeway to do some things in student support and some things in perhaps the other one was contingency, things like that. It just I spread it out a little bit within those funds. None of the numbers changed except moving them from one slot to the next. The example would be on 415, where for the 400 funds, all of that money was in the 4,000 series, and I just moved it a little bit to some of the others. Question?
I don't remember in the past actually splitting this out like this for the resolution from the motion that we adopted. Is that-
I'm sorry, say that again, I didn't hear you.
In other words, this detail that's in here,
Yes.
I don't remember doing that previously. So I'm just wondering why we're doing it this way this year.
It was, this is the adopted resolution that we've done in the past years.
Okay.
I go back and look at those just to make sure I have it in the same format, but it is.
Okay.
And it has a place to sign. It's kind of the formal way to adopt it as opposed to just a vote.
So do you need these resolutions read?
No, no. Well, this resolution is what you just approved. All it is in paper format. And once it's adopted, after a vote, then we just need to sign it and it's officially adopted.
That will happen during action item.
Tanya, do we need an approval currently for the minutes, or is that an action item?
We have the first and second.
Correct. We'll vote on it. We have more?
Did you
Ask for community comments on the Yeah, make sure.
So this is more FYI than anything else.
Yeah, it's what we discussed on paper, yes.
Were there any community comments on the budget?
Not so far.
Anybody have anything they'd like to say?
Well, just if we could just get a copy of it, is there a copy available? We could just pick up and see.
It's online.
It's online right now? Okay, thanks.
All right, Tanya. May I have a roll call?
Member Sable,
Yes.
Member Richardson,
Yes.
member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Dizdall,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Brownell,
Yes.
member Wilkins.
Yes. 3.0, moving on to regular session. We have
Comments
a,
are still open for the budget hearing for 5 more minutes. But we can proceed.
thank you. So there's consent agenda.
Member Schmidt moves that we approve the consent agenda.
Member Smith, seconds.
So, there is a shift in that. What I'm seeing here, Tanya. Let me start with action.
The shift is in the agenda itself.
So-
We're doing the consent agenda and then moving into action items.
Perfect. How long do we have for public comment still?
Joe knows how to sing and play the guitar if we need to.
I would say.
We can talk about community comments.
We just need to do a roll call vote and we can proceed. But I'll interrupt if anybody comments on the hearing.
Excellent.
So member Sable,
Yes.
member Richardson,
Yes.
member Schmidt,
Yes.
member Dizdall,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Brownell.
Yes.
member Wilkins.
Yes. 5.0, community comments. We're excited. We have a stack of comments tonight. It looks like it would be about 33 minutes if we hear all of them. We allow 20 minutes within our thing, but I feel it's reasonable to allow 33 minutes. We all agree?
Yep.
Yes. All right,
Do we need a
so we'll
motion?
hear everybody.
We need to have a motion to. Okay.
No, we don't. I just wanted to make sure we were all.
Said no.
Gary says no.
No.
No, he said no to those.
To the, of
Yeah.
needing a motion. What's?
Yes, okay. Good. All right,
We're no longer accepting blue comment cards now, correct?
correct, yes.
we can keep-
Okay. So. I guess Tanya, I'm a little, where are we doing with the change in the agenda?
So the first,
Right, so we're gonna do that.
action
first.
item is approval, of the second and final reading of policy JEC.
So where have we put on the agenda? Well. These are after that, so.
Your question.
So where's the community comments? Where will we listen to the community comments? In the
Before
agenda?
your action items. That's what they're about.
So that's where we are right now.
Well, you would do your, you would actually do your motion and your second. The board will discuss and then community comments,
Okay,
how that works.
thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I didn't understand.
We're on JEC first.
Yes, so 6.1, approval and second and final reading of policy JEC. Would entertain a motion.
Wait, what are we doing?
We're doing JEC at the moment and then when that's done, we would go to 6.2, which is IIA. We would take first and second, the board to communicate and then allow the community to communicate to the board.
That feels clunky.
We already have 5.0 community comments, which is just an open period
That's
for
what-
people to comment.
So
Right.
just go with that.
Just let them comment.
That's what I was questioning.
Yeah.
All right. So number 1. Brittany Daggett. You can either choose to stand there or come up to the. I understand.
You probably want them there so we can get it on those.
Is there a
Wherever you
microphone?
felt
There's a
comfortable.
microphone over there?
There's a microphone, up, right? Oh, I thought there was.
They're not to project.
No, but for your recording, right? Yes.
Hi, I'm Brittany Baggett. I have a soon-to-be 6th grader who was previously at Riverside Elementary School. I've been a parent group president for the last 3 years. I've attended already the PTSA meetings for North in preparation for a transition to middle school. I'm a deeply involved parent and I'm fiercely protective of my child. I've reviewed the library access for his elementary schools. And in preparation, I've also reviewed the books that will be accessible as he ages into middle school and beyond. Every parent or guardian advocate has access to this information should they have concerns. And I'm aware that not every student has this level of advocacy at home, but that's why it's critical that our library professionals who are trained, experienced, and committed to student success are empowered to do their jobs without unnecessary barriers. With this in mind, I'd like to formally highlight some of the potential issues with the newest policy draft. We've seen that the current process can be implemented effectively and has allowed community members the transparency needed to highlight any potential concerns. This new draft and the respective 25-day wait period outlined will limit the autonomy and hamper the abilities of our trained and dedicated library managers, which is untenable. Furthermore, the language surrounding promoting sexual experimentation is concerningly subjective and may open the door to discriminatory removal or of even great classics. Creating a policy that is legally and constitutionally sound is vital, and reviewing content intent of literature is difficult. That's why there's a team of highly educated library staff who undergo rigorous training to help refine our library selections. This is also why there's community transparency of materials on the website, and guardrails are currently in place to allow parents the ability to remove books from their students' access or contest materials on the whole. Unfortunately, these changes outlined in the new draft seem to prioritize bureaucratic control over educational expertise. It slows access, limits representation, and places undue strain on an already thoughtful process. I trust that every board member here shares the goal of protecting and fostering our students and their success. And for the sake of the students who deserve timely access to new materials, I would encourage the board to rethink not just the waiting period, but the cumulative impact of those proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jennifer Roberts.
Sorry, excuse me. I mean, I could almost just say ditto. That was beautifully said. My name is Jennifer Roberts. I've been a resident of Grants Pass for 20 years. I raised 2 children here, and I served on the Parent Advisory Council for 8 years. I am just to add to what was so eloquently said there, I just am really questioning the need for this 25-day waiting period that I've read about in your school library's proposal. And I'm a little curious about why that doesn't align with the model policy that was put out by the Oregon School Board Association. I read that policy. I saw nothing about a 25-day, any day waiting period in that policy. And so I'm curious where that came from. I'm curious about what the motivation is behind it, and what exactly that 25-day period, what problem that is supposed to address besides just adding a layer of complexity to what is already a very well researched, vetted process by our highly trained librarians. Thank you for your time.
Brittany Shannon.
Hi. So I'm Brittany Shannon. I'm the founder of Options for Education, and I'm so grateful that this last year I've gotten to know many of the staff here at Grants Pass. I've enrolled my daughter in Grants Pass High School, which is a huge change. Never ever thought I would do that, but it's really due to the trust that I really feel for the staff and the leadership here. And more so than just that experience, but having my voice matter and heard and appreciated just was a really different relationship that I was able to cultivate. It was very unexpected. I was really very critical of your health class, for example. And I heard that you guys were looking at a new health curriculum. And so I wrote and I asked, I heard that there was a public review process. That's something you guys do at the district, that when you have a new curriculum, you guys have it open for parents to look at for 25 days before you vote on it. Great idea. Took advantage of that. Trish Evans sent it to me. I reviewed it. I was so excited. It was actually excellent. I look forward to my daughter being in it, which was a total shocker. I really didn't expect to support it at all. But I'll tell you that opportunity as a parent to review it and have a voice, and to hear back from the district. You know, Trish Evans herself commented back. We had a conversation about it, and the trust that builds when parents get to have a voice and are fully informed. That is huge. It's huge for trust building in our community. It's true. It's huge for us supporting the board and knowing that, hey, you guys actually appreciate the fact that we voted you in. You know, I know that you're a part of the school district and the Oregon Department of Education, but we voted you in. And I really appreciate that, the hard work that you've done to bring this policy to light, because I feel like it is honoring that you are working for us. And I really appreciate it. I will, how much time do I have?
55.
Seconds?
Mhm.
Okay. Bummer. All right, well, I will just say that I think that my personal opinion is that a school library should be held to a different standard than a public library. And my point in that is that I dropped my child off here to be taught and to be protected. And that's not what I do at the library. I go with my kid to the library, or, you know, that's a public library. I can go volunteer. I can be a part of it. I get to monitor. I'm in charge of my kid's library card. That's a very different situation than school, where I'm dropping my kid off and putting them in the hands of someone else. So I think there should be a higher level of expectation. So thank you so much. I have a lot more to say, but I won't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan.
Hi, my name is Megan Moritz. I am raising fifth generation graduates from Grants Pass High School. My blood runs blue. 3 years ago, one of my daughters brought home a graphic novel from North Middle School's library. It included visual and written instruction on masturbation, regular and anal sex. At 11 years old, this is not the type of material I expect my child to be bringing home to read. Thankfully, Tommy Blanchard was there at the time and he managed it. The book left, but those books should never be in the school library. I'm with Brittany Shannon on this point. It's different at the school library versus the public library. I am fully in support of the district's desire to advocate and protect the children of our town. Thank you.
Right. Cheryl King. Sure?
Sure, yes.
Hi, my name is Shelley King Shore. I'm an internationally published author of novels and short stories. I'm also the founder of the Rogue Writers Collective here in Grants Pass, where we help writers in the area achieve their dreams of whatever they want their writing to be. I'm here as an advocate for free reading. I believe that anybody should be able to read anything they want to at any time that they want to. I was that kid. I was the kid who probably brought home books that y'all would probably find objectionable. Sorry about the y'all, I grew up in South Carolina. That many people in this room would probably find objectionable. I was so curious about the world. I was curious about what people did behind closed doors. I was curious about, you know, places and people that I would never meet, and places I would never go to, and things I would never do. But because of that curiosity, I was able to read these books and satisfy that curiosity and then go on with my life. Books are either a mirror or they are a window. Kids need windows, right? They need to be able to see what is beyond their world. They also need mirrors because that's satisfying. To read about people who are like us, to recognize yourself in a book, maybe under a different character name, but that's amazing. That's an amazing feeling. But I also want to tell you about someone else other than just myself. I want to tell you about my brother. My brother died 20 years ago from AIDS. And he died believing that straight people hated him. It wasn't true, but that's what he believed. And with all the book banning and things coming up in the world lately, I would never even know about a lot of the books that are considered controversial, but I do now. And I've been reading a lot of them. And when I'm reading these books, all I can think about was what a lifeline they would have been to my brother. That maybe he would not have lived longer, but he would have lived better. He would have been able to see a mirror and see people like him And maybe his classmates who abused him so terribly would have also read these books and seen a window and be able to satisfy curiosity rather than lash out at what they didn't understand. So that's my plea, is to let kids read whatever it is that they want to read, because I did, and I didn't turn out so bad. Just saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa Donahoe?
Real quick. Is it okay if we close that door where the
Thank you.
feedback is coming from?
Yes.
I know, speaking personally,
We
it's
turn it
hard
down?
to talk when you hear yourself echoing.
Yeah. You wanna
That's you, Barrett.
turn it down?
Dustin, I'm glad that wasn't just me hearing that.
And it's hard to listen to, but yeah.
You called
Yeah.
Melissa, right?
Yes. Sorry. I thought you were coming to fix the sound thing.
No, I am not good at IT. That is not my strength. Okay. Oh. Right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Donahoe. I am a community member and I am also the co-chair of Oregon Library Association's Intellectual Freedom Committee. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the draft of policy IIA instructional materials, which directly contradicts the principles of the recently passed Oregon Freedom to Read Bill, SB 1098, which is slated to become law. Oregon law explicitly prohibits the removal of books solely because they feature or are written by individuals from protected classes, including race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and religion. This policy undermines those protections under the umbrella of sexual content, setting a dangerous precedent where discomfort rather than educational merit determines access to knowledge. Books are essential tools for understanding complex issues, including learning about one's body. Restricting access does not shield young people from difficult realities. It only limits their ability to engage with diverse perspectives and develop critical thinking skills. Moreover, reading materials available in school libraries are not mandated. They are available for personal selection. Removing them erases choices for all students. While parents have the right to guide their own children's reading, no group of parents should impose their personal beliefs on the entire student body. That is censorship, not parental choice. Let's not distort the idea of parents' choice. This draft policy removes choice by allowing a select few to dictate what all families can access. That is not education, it is exclusion. Further, the language in this policy is incredibly subjective, which makes it very difficult to apply and enforce. I also want to address the 25-day waiting period. Removing an item that otherwise fits the collection development policy before it reaches the library is the same as removing materials outside of a reconsideration process, which constitutes censorship and can be considered an infringement on the rights of students. I urge the board to reconsider policy IIA instructional materials to ensure that all students have the freedom to explore, learn, and grow without ideological barriers. Thank you.
Kirby Erickson?
My name is Kirby Erickson, and I have lived in the same District 7 home for 38 years. All three of my children attended schools here in District 7. I'm a retired developmental disabilities nurse, as well as a certified special ed teacher and autism specialist. I worked here for 30 years in Jackson and Josephine County with preschoolers all the way to high schoolers. I have a bachelor's degree from Berkeley in physiology and a master's in special ed autism from Eugene, UVO. My working world has been learning from my students, as well as supporting their instruction at school and the community. I loved all my jobs. The hardest part of retiring is missing my students. I have known many young people who identify as LGBTQ. I have always been a supportive adult whom these students could feel comfortable talking with. I was a co-leader for the Gay Straight Alliance here at Grants Pass High School. Young teens who identify as LGBTQ need our support. For some, what they are experiencing is fluid. They need to be surrounded by positivity and information. The American Academy of Pediatrics report that LGBTQ plus youth face disapproval from community, fellow students, and sometimes their own families. Transgender people face an alarmingly high rate of verbal harassment and physical violence. And this could include being at home or at school or elsewhere in the community. These youth face significant mental health issues as a consequence. Depression, suicidal ideation, anxiety, body image distortion, substance abuse, and PTSD. Supportive people and environments can buffer these negative outcomes and promote positive health and well-being. If children are raised without getting a chance to hear a story about families like theirs, with maybe two fathers or two mothers, that is teaching the child that their family is bad or something to be shunned. Why would we do that when the district's role is to nurture children? Our school librarian is trained to understand the role of literature. How many?
15 seconds.
Of literature in children's lives. Library books representing LGBTQ youth are crucial because they provide representation, validation. My objection to District 2A, its emphasis on school board members, emphasizing.
Time, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm happy for our librarian.
Amber Harris.
Hi there, my name's Amber Harris. I have two kids that go to Riverside Elementary School. I'm also a teacher. I teach kindergarten. I've been teaching for 18 years. When I was in middle school and high school, I was one of the kids also that liked to read a lot of the controversial books. I read a lot of Stephen King. I read a lot of V.C. Andrews books. If you know anything about V.C. Andrews, you know that lady is controversial. My mom just signed a permission slip and sent me on my way. And I don't understand why we cannot do the same thing in this district. The books that were off limits were in a part of the library that you could access as long as you had a permission slip. So if we have family members that are that worried about the access that students might have to books in the library, I don't understand why a simple permission slip doesn't suffice. But really what I wanted to talk about is that I feel like this is actually just about LGBTQ kids. And when you agreed to be board members or superintendents or whatever your job may be, you agreed to educate children who do not look like you, who do not worship like you, whose families do not look like your family, and who may not be heterosexual. And I expect you to treat them the same way that you would treat my children, who right now are too young to know what sexuality is or what they may be. But if they ended up being something other than heterosexual, I would expect this board to treat them the same way that they would treat any heterosexual child. And it doesn't feel like this policy does that. So when you agreed to be a board member, you agreed to do things for the community, good of the community. And that means everyone in the community, not just people that look like you, not just families that are like yours. You agreed to be leaders for everyone's family. And so my expectation is that you will do that. So I have a couple questions before the end of my statement. I was wondering how gay kids threaten you personally or in your schools, because I doubt they do. I was wondering how children that are LGBTQ are managing to earn so much hate from adults who are supposed to be protecting them. And when I walked into your district office, I noticed that you have a sign that says you're committed to excellence and success for all. And that means for all,
not just for the families who share the same political and religious beliefs that you share. Thank you.
Thank you. Eva.
Piper? Hi, I'm Eva Piper. I have been a community member in Grants Pass for 35 years. I was an Allendale, South, and GP mom, and I have in the District 7 family, I've got 26 years down between being a middle school teacher and my current position, which is the District 7 district librarian. I'm here to comment on policy IIA. There's a requirement in the board's draft for a 25-day waiting period before new library books can be put into the libraries and made available to students. There are several problems with this that I'd like to point out. The purpose of requiring a waiting period is not clear. This is a cumbersome step that adds inefficiency into our system. It is a confusing directive, especially in regard to allowing exceptions to the rule and soliciting public reviews. Most importantly, we already have a process in place that provides both transparency and community involvement when it comes to books in the library. I'm calling on the board to remove the 25-day waiting period from the policy. I agree with the board that transparency is essential in a public education system. When it comes to the books in our libraries, we already provide 100% transparency. Our library catalog is public and also includes a clearly visible section that displays all of the new books, which is titled Recently Added Books, so it's super easy to figure out. Anyone with internet access right this second can visit the district website and see every book in any of the school libraries with new books listed. You also can look up my email address and ask me questions about any of them, because if I was your middle school teacher and your librarian, I'm very open to that. This transparency welcomes that community and parent involvement. The community already has a voice through the existing library book challenge procedure, which is clear and, with the examples given today, is effective. The first step is to contact the principal, who gathers information and analyzes the book in question. Submitting a comment to the administration simply to express your opinion on a book and have us take a closer look is already available as the first step of our current procedure. There's no need to have an additional comment portal for this. As a next step, a parent can choose to submit the request for reconsideration form, which puts the process in motion to have a review committee carefully analyze the book. The committee will read the entire book and consider the book's literary merit, intended audience, so which grade level that book fits into, the intended audience, and whether the book fits our district's collection development requirements for both selecting and for removing library books. We encourage parent input, and that is why this procedure is already in place. It's taken very seriously, and it is based on best practices. There are many unanswered questions with this 25-day waiting period. An important one is, what prevents this from becoming a politically organized attempt to pressure the district to remove books from the list, avoiding a formal challenge? Our current practices provide professional selection guidelines, transparency, and parent involvement. It would be wise to remove the 25-day waiting period. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Lasky. I think she's outside. Kate Lasky.
Yeah. Can I just say what Eva said? That was really well put. So my name is Kate Lasky, and I'm a parent of Grants Pass High School student. And I'm asking you to vote no and not move forward with the proposed changes to the library materials policy, specifically the 25-day waiting period. With the passage of Senate Bill 1098 yesterday, Oregon law now clearly prohibits schools from avoiding or rejecting the selection of materials based on who a book is about or who wrote it. The law also requires any removal to go through a normal process, a written request, review by committee, and public explanation. The 25-day waiting period that's proposed circumvents that process and may create legal risk for the district. It also creates confusion. It suggests to the public that commenting during this period can influence or block a book selection. But by that point, the books have already been professionally vetted and approved. Parents who object still need to go through the existing request for reconsideration process. That process is standard across districts and works very well. This policy also invites selective pressure, especially against books that reflect LGBTQ identities or historically marginalized communities, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and Black and Native American. Whether intentional or not, delaying or avoiding those selections could constitute discrimination under Senate Bill 1098. The board should vote this policy down tonight. Not only is it unnecessary, but if passed, it will burden the incoming board with another year of debate over what is effectively censorship by delay. We already have a clear, transparent system that supports parent involvement, like myself, while protecting professional and inclusive library practices. Please vote no on the proposed changes tonight and keep our library policy aligned with state law, constitutional protections, and best practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Napier. The name's not Heidi.
Okay.
I'm Heidi Napier. I live in Grants Pass. I don't have any children currently going to any Grants Pass schools. Mine are all grown. The reason I'm here is because I have seen some of the books in the high school library, and the one I'm thinking of in particular is the title Tricks. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it is outright pornography, and why it is in a high school library is beyond me. I mean, you don't have to be an editor of a porn magazine to recognize it. It's outright porn. And you know, my kids are grown, but if I had caught any of them with that from the public school, I would have thrown a fit and pulled them out of the school immediately. But when my kids were in school, there wasn't any of that kind of crap in the libraries. So one thing I wonder about is if you're going to decide what books can be in the library, are you folks going to sit down and read them, look at them? I mean, how are you going to decide? How have you thought about that? And I think it's good to limit the books in the library for school kids. But you need to know, it would be nice to know how that's going to be done, what the process is. And, you know, maybe we just shouldn't allow anything that was published after the year 1900 or something. I don't think. Oh, no. I'm just kidding, but anyway, I would like you folks to check out that book because it's in the high school library, and I've seen it, and you don't want your kids reading this kind of stuff. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oops. Mary Wells.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mary Wells, and I'm a student at Grants Pass High School. I'll be going into my senior year after this summer. I'm deeply involved in my school's community and beyond that. Because of that, I have come to many school board meetings over the course of my life and many in the past year. I have watched one issue very closely, and that would be this current and most popular issue over the library selection process. Another thing about me is that throughout my life, I have been an extremely active reader. I was not a child who was given access to electronics from an early age. I read a book when I needed something to do. I could not even begin to count for you all the hours I have spent in school libraries of District 7 schools. Throughout my time in the district, Eva Piper has done an admirable job as the district librarian. In the past 3 years of Grants Pass High School, I have gotten to know Eva Piper, my school's librarian. I have been continually impressed by her professionalism and the work she does to know her students. Eva Piper and her staff are undoubtedly capable of doing their job without undue hindrance by only a few parents motivated primarily by heavily politicized issues. I believe that this step in the selection process creates an unnecessary barrier, especially for students in need. I have personally read the 3 books which motivated this most recent intrigue into the selection process, those being Flamer by Mike Cawardo, All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, and Beyond Magenta, which is various memoirs of transgender teenagers. And here I'm going to be blunt. As an openly queer person, I am not the child you are trying to protect. To be honest, I'm not sure that child really exists. Books allow us to build empathy, to learn that other people share our struggles, hopes, dreams, and growth, and everything else that makes us human, whether or not they share our background, they look like us, or experience the same things that we do. I strongly oppose this proposal. I have discussed it with many other students at Grants Pass High School, queer students, straight students, students who have politics opposite of mine. Most I have spoken to oppose it. If you believe that you truly represent the student population of Grants Pass High School, I would very strongly urge you to vote no on this proposed change to the selection process. Thank you.
Indra Nichols.
Hi, my name is Indra Nicholas. Live in the city. I raised 4 kids that graduated from Grants Pass High School. They're all out. My youngest is 21, so it's been a few years. I am fully in support of this policy. I just want to first say thank you so much for serving. I know it's not easy to be a public servant. I know that you're committed to what you do. I know that you're committed to all children. And as I read through, I just want to highlight some of the things in the criteria that struck me. It's all common sense things. Suitable for the educational environment in quality and authenticity. I'm just touched on a few. Contain content that can be taught objectively, fosters critical thinking, which is very much needed these days. Provide fair and accurate representation, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate in theme and content, not be pervasively vulgar, obscene, or pornographic. The materials will not contain gratuitous or vulgar profanity, not overly or purposefully promote illicit drug use, alcohol, or self-harm. So I'm finding a hard time figuring out, a lot of people speaking want to label kids. There's nothing in here that labels kids into one group or another. This is a fair policy for all children, all children. I know you love all children, not just a select few, and you're not out to harm certain groups that get labeled. And I'm so against the labeling of our children. They should just go into school, learn academics, learn social skills, and be children. And the problem with having pornographic and vulgar books in school is that it harms kids. So while it might help a few children, I would have to see that and how it helps. I'm not saying it doesn't. It harms a large percentage of children, because once you see that, you cannot unsee it. And so you might have a kindergarten child that sees this pornography stuff and they carry it their lifetime. And most parents don't want their children to see that kind of stuff. And so I'm really shocked that we even have to discuss this today and have this discussion of not putting pornographic and vulgar books in our library. And I will add, the school library is much different than the public library or what you can buy online. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Turk.
Hi there. Yes, I'm Lindsay Turk, born and raised in Grants Pass, Allendale Elementary, graduated from Grants Pass High School 31 years ago. I will make it short and sweet tonight. I'm here to support the board to pass the policy 2A. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Austin.
My name's Karen Austin, and I'm a 40-plus year resident of Grants Pass. I'm a community member, a retired teacher, and I was a court-appointed special advocate for children in the court system here for several years. And I'm currently a business owner that serves 150 local young children in Grants Pass. And I'm here basically to thank the board for putting forth this proposal. I mirror a lot of the comments that have already been made. I appreciate the work and the time that it's taken to put your heads together and get something like this together. As a community member without a child currently of mine, currently in the school system, my two graduated a long time ago. I've often wanted to find the curriculum to be able to look at it or to look at what library books are available. And it's been really hard on the website to try to find anything. So I'm hoping that through these policy augmentations that there will be a huge increase in that transparency and very easily accessible for all community members and taxpayers as well to access that. I have, however, seen one of the books that's been talked about as well in the library. And when I first saw that library book, my knee-jerk reaction, the first thing that I thought of is, if my husband had that book and handed it to a teenager as they were walking by on the sidewalk, he would be arrested. Why is it in our school library system? And that was very disconcerting to me. And so I'm very thankful that there is going to be a review period that's going to be established, and that community members and parents and families will have the ability to, to see things a little bit more transparently, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much, and I'm supportive of all of you.
Robert Bath.
Didn't take out my former principal's elbow. In a former board meeting, members questioned each District 7 administrator asking, do you favor inclusion of pornographic and vulgar material in our curriculum and books? During that exchange, it soon became apparent that you were using the terms pornographic and vulgar to replace the terms lesbian, gay, or intersex, or transsexual. In case you weren't aware, LGBTI have higher rate of attempting suicide than other students. Despite what you may think, homosexuality and trans is not a choice, and as some pastors would have you believe. It's not a way for teenagers to gain attention, and the only political agenda surrounding them is to keep these kids alive. So I ask each of you board members, if one of your constituents' children successfully took their own life, would you grieve with their parents? Or would you say it was part of a divine plan that we can't understand? Under Section 7, when you refer to vulgar or pornographic, do you include references to persons or issues who deal with LGBTI issues? You include the term sodomy in this policy, which differs throughout the United States, but you did not define it. I'm curious to know why. Caster Semenya is a genetically and anatomically female athlete, but her testosterone level is more typical of that of a man. Women don't want Caster to compete against them because they lose. Men don't want to compete against Caster either. The caster is one of many people around the world with genetic anomaly that makes them different. Physicians will tell you that there are at least 5 syndromes that affect gender determination and secondary sex characteristics. And I challenge you to look up androgen insensitivity syndrome, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, and Swyer syndrome. One of the reasons that this is important is that I have a relative who was born as my nephew. She is now my niece. I can't tell you which syndrome they have, but her parents, both of whom are physicians, probably can. Besides, it doesn't matter. Despite being surrounded with love and a strong father, she is trans, and each of her 4 uncles and our families love her unconditionally. The policy you're contemplating can put science teachers in an awkward position. During a discussion on genetics in middle or high school, they will choose either to avoid any controversy and ignore these syndromes, and that increases the chance that an LGBTI student attempts suicide and battles mental illness. Or they'll exercise their academic freedom in an attempt to help these students understand that there's often a genetic component, not an environmental component involved. And I implore you, if any of you are persons of faith, to live that faith and love all our D7 students unconditionally, as the New Testament commands us to do. Did I make it?
All right, have 2 after the deadline, but we also have two online after the deadline, so 4 more, guys. Okay. So, Logan Strike. Logan? Oh. I took the long way. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening. My name is Logan McLean Strike. I am a resident here in Grants Pass, and I'm a parent of a 1-year-old, so he is not in school yet, but he will be in public school. And I'm also the pastor at Newman United Methodist Church, so I am a local faith leader. I want to share a little story. And this is funny to me, at least. I was a voracious reader as a child, and I couldn't get enough of the books in the library, and everything was color coded, and I kept on going up and up, and I got to the point where I was taking some of my grandmother's books and looking at the covers and reading the flaps, and I picked up a Nora Roberts book, and I asked my grandma, "Can I read it?" And she said, "Sure, go right ahead." And lo and behold, I found 7 pages of sexual content that I wasn't expecting to have as a 9-year-old. And I bring up this story to say, the world happens to our kids. Whether or not we intend to come upon different things or whether we're seeking them out, it happens. And the best way that we can be with our kids is to be with them as they unpack and understand. And I see the school as a place where some of those conversations are happening. As I got into high school and read Toni Morrison and Shakespeare, those kind of works had sexual content. And my concern with the draft of the instructional materials has to do with the 25-day waiting period, of course, in my opinion, and also in the selection criteria under 0.7A and then number 8, it talks a little bit about that. I'm sorry, I don't have the words before me. And my concern is that it's not specific enough in the way that I think the authors intended, because are we going to pull Shakespeare out of our curriculum? Are we going to pull back Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston? Are we going to take off The Great Gatsby? There's lots of complex ideas that require educators to be equipped And sometimes we have adults in our lives that are like grandma, my grandma, who didn't have that ability to be that critical thinker with me when she let me read a book. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the chance to speak.
Judy Aaron's.
Yes, thank you, Judy Aaron's. As I've been listening for the last hour of the pros and cons here tonight, and to start with, I normally don't agree with you when I do come to on a lot of issues. This one I do. I really do appreciate you having that time period. And let me just share. Some of you this evening have been sharing, like, you know, obviously there's different children growing up with different lifestyles or what have you. But let me tell you that in Oregon, we are second to the bottom academically. So let me just repeat that. We're second to the bottom academic according to Epic Times. And I get Epic Times and I kind of believe them. And the reason I bring that up, we should leave whatever we feel we are, girl, boy, combination, whatever. We should leave that at the door when we enter all these teachers' classrooms. Because when we enter that classroom, we're there to learn the ABCs. We're learn having maybe spelling tests. We get back to spelling tests. We can learn geography. We can learn about the different continents if we even know how many there are. We can learn all those things and we can come out being very educated. So we will be a product of our society when employers say, can you read? I could use you for this job. Can you do that? Oh, you can read instructions. That's what that's what these meetings are about. And that's what this is who these board members are. They're here to make sure we have programs that will get the kids from this point that, not that we're going to lower the standards. And I'm a little nervous sometimes that could be happening because we see the graduation rates going up. But we want our kids, like my child, came out, scholar, just went through USC as just whizzed through it because I was watching his academic as he went along. So my point is, we get so wrapped up in all these personal lifestyles, we bring them in the classroom. And the last thing that we want to do is to be teaching those different lifestyles in the classroom. I'm hearing a lot of stuff, well, everybody's got the right if they want to be this or that. Granted, they do. But when they get in the classroom, the only thing we want those teachers to be doing is to making sure when they leave this high school or they leave the 8th grade, that they're academically bound to bigger things, to colleges. I noticed last year I was sharing that. It was sharing that 3rd graders, only a third of them can read it at grade level. That's not good. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about, can they read it? And if we can't, that's what might be the conversation to be. How we can get teachers and programs so that we can get 60%, we can get 50% to read. So then by the time they get out of 8th grade, now we've got some really good readers. And now when they get out of high school, now they can pick the college that they want. They're limited. So I hear all your comments and I hear where your frustrations are. But when those kids and that bell rings in the classroom, let's make sure they're going there for the A, B, and C. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to unmute Emily. We tried to let her know that she's next, but she hasn't responded, so we just need a little bit of time.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it, but I'm here.
Okay, hi Emily, you 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Emily McIntyre. I am a state representative for District 56 in Southern Oregon and also a school board member in Eagle Point, though I am not here on behalf of them or as a state representative. I am just simply here to give testimony. I have been listening for the last half an hour. I was actually on the floor debate yesterday when we debated House Bill 10 or Senate Bill 1098. I would encourage all of you to go and check OLIS for yesterday's House floor session. And at 1 hour and 41 minutes was the opening testimony from Representative Nelson. At 2 hours and 31 minutes was Representative Hudson's testimony. And then Rep. Nelson closed out at 2 hours and 43 minutes again. And I would encourage each of you to go and listen. I see nothing in the policy. I'm sorry, there's a train. I see nothing in this current board policy that would go against what 1098 is doing. Of course, what we do in the House and in the Capitol is the floor, it's not the ceiling, so it's a starting point. The policy that you have before you very, very clearly states that you cannot discriminate against gender identity, race, sexual orientation, any of those things. It also says that you can't exclude things that have pervasive vulgarity, sexuality, etc. So there's a lot of books in the library that are going to have some, but it's not going to be pervasive. It says that the librarian selects your materials. That is what 1098 says. It says that there has to be a process and procedure. You still have a process and procedure. So according to what you have here, I don't see anything in this that's going to clearly go against the bill that we just voted on in the floor. And I can clearly see that you have in this policy that you are not discriminating against anyone. Of course, in ORS 659.850, it is unlawful to discriminate in public education. And I see this bill, I see your policy as aligning with that and with 1098. So thank you for your time tonight. I hope you guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Rob, are you there? Rob, are you there?
Calling Robert Bob.
Rob.
Someone online.
Barrett, your elbow, okay, he responds. He's not responding, so short call. What did you say? I'm sorry. He's not responding. We're good. Okay, yes. Go ahead and mute him. Hey. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time tonight and to speak. I think that that's a really important part of our system. You doing that. So 6.1, we'll move on to approval of second and final reading of policy JDC.
Member Brownell, I move that we approve the second and final reading of policy JEC on admissions.
Member Schmidt seconds.
Second, is there any discussion? Hearing none. Anya, member Sable?
Yes.
Member Griffin?
Yes.
Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Member Dibdahl?
Yes.
Member Smith?
Yes.
Member Brownell? Yes. Member Wilkins? Yes. Point 2. Approval of first reading of policy IIA instructional materials.
I have some comments. Do you want a motion first before we discuss?
Yeah.
You gotta have a motion.
I'll wait for a motion.
Member Dibdahl moves that we approve action item 6.2, approval of first reading, policy IIA, instructional materials.
Member Sable seconds.
Second, is there any discussion?
As I mentioned, I have some comments. So the last time we met as a policy board meeting, the last thing I expressed was I felt there needed to be a little more attention to some of the legal comments that we received specifically from OEA. And I think the recommendation was, well, why don't you make some recommendations? So I have some recommendations, but really just want to go through kind of some of the lists. Some of them we've already addressed. Before I do that, I wanted to mirror what you said, Cassie. I'm proud of our town and the decorum of our meeting, and I've seen videos online of people showing up to these types of meeting and they go sideways and stuff, but thank you all for your comments and being very respectful, and I love this process, so.
Dustin, are your recommendations in our packet?
Are
they coming?
No, I was just gonna go through each one.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So. I mean, what I'm generally gonna go through is the OEA comments kind of one by one. One of the first ones was in relation to some of the comments we heard tonight about the first paragraph, and maybe we should wait on SB 1098. I don't know if that changes it. We heard from Ms. McIntyre that she doesn't believe our policy is in contradiction to that. I haven't personally read it. But
Or we get a policy on SB 1098, it would be in the fall. So.
so if it affects this policy, we make changes based off of it at that point. We wouldn't be in violation of it.
They're
We
gonna
would just,
get us any kind of language in the immediate on how that would be,
okay.
yeah.
Sort of a
wait and see type thing.
Yeah. The second one, I don't even think this affects materially the main issues of the policy, but it's regarding the second paragraph. There's some concern that the language that is chosen here maybe leaves out some other language and that it's picking and choosing. Paragraph 2 in the, just at the beginning.
Structural.
So one idea is just delete the paragraph because it really, to me, doesn't add or detract. It's providing some contextual. Again, my point here is to try to have a policy that doesn't have any major objections going in, especially from OEA.
Justin, can you? Point us a little more?
Second paragraph, starting with District 7 schools, emphasize instruction in honesty, morality, courtesy, obedience. Goes on. It all kind of sounds pretty good, but the concern is that it needs to be much longer to align with the paraphrase of RS 33.6.0671 that's incomplete. So wonder if we could live without it. I don't know if it really, if that context needs to be in there, if it's really shaping the policy, if it's going to cause problems.
I would say that we're reflecting what the Oregon legislature put into law. And like a lot of policy language, it's not going to exactly word for words, match the law. It might be citing or referencing. But, these were things that the Oregon legislature thought were important for Oregon education that are pretty universal values that people agree with. And I don't see that there's harm in having them, but it does reflect that as a board. We like the fact that is stated in law as emphasis on education for the state of Oregon. So it's just sharing it with the district and with the community that we also agree with those values, and they're good values for our kids. So I don't see a point in taking it out personally.
I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, to me, it all sounds like good stuff. Nobody in the room tonight objected to that language specifically, but it's just something that it was brought up by the OEA, and I don't know if that means they're going to plan on.
Legislature struck that law out and said, we don't want any school districts using this language. And I guess we go, okay, Oregon legislature, but that language exists. And those are good values and I like them. So I'm not in favor of taking it out.
Well, there was no
legal
issue.
Yeah.
I know for about 20 years, a certain board member has emphasized over and over again, and I finally agree with him, that we really don't need in our policy to reiterate what is in ORS. And so paragraph 2 is from ORS 336.067, which is listed at the end of the policy. And it does leave out things like respect for parents in the home. And I agree with Dustin that it's already in the ORS. We don't need it in the policy also. I would move for striking it also.
Debbie, would you feel better if we put back the language about respect for parents in the home?
No, I'd feel better if we took it out, and I would entertain an explanation of why. And this is not the only place where ORSs are kind of changed a bit, a few words left out or a few words added in instead of going with just the ORS, when we really just need the ORS at the end of the policy.
the administration, the teachers, the system checks those ORSs. And it is not necessary to put every law in total in the policy. Do you have a comment on a change in philosophy?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, what?
Oh, is Gary the person you're referring to?
Who else has been around 20 years?
So, yes, often I argue for not repeating things that are already in the law and stuff like that. And the part you didn't mention is I didn't usually win those debates in the past. And the reason given most of the time, I'm like the last one I remember was Trish Evans saying that having some extra verbiage to make it clear in the policy makes it more understandable for people, gives them some context for the things that they're reading. So in this particular case, we're talking about instructional material, and there's no legal issue with having that paragraph in there. The attorneys just, I don't know why they even comment on it, but they didn't say we're going to get sued.
I know I kind of respect the lawyer's take on legal issues and advice more than just saying, I don't understand.
So I want to have a moment of clarification. I think if we're gonna start making changes, this is the first reading that we send it back to policy committee and maybe not hash that out in the regular board meetings with changes. Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was gonna go. If Dustin is proposing some potential changes, then we haven't, and we're just gonna discuss them, then we haven't completed our work. And I'm a little concerned about continuing forward if we haven't completed our work. Also, we heard testimony from 10, 12, 15 people tonight. It was some compelling testimony on all sides.
20.
20, yeah. And I think out of respect for that process, listening to what those folks had to say and weighing those conversations is important as well. So I personally, at this point in time, do not think we've completed our work yet. And I mean, I will go where I am right now, and that is I'm not ready to vote on this thing yet.
Good news is we have a second and we do have
I
to
know,
vote on
I'm
it.
not, excuse me, I'm not
For
ready.
the bad news.
I'm
sorry.
not ready to vote in the affirmative yet. That's if we're going to talk about changing it at this point in time.
Anybody else have?
Well,
thoughts?
in our last policy workshop, we referred it to this board meeting for a vote because we felt like we were in a pretty good place after a year of going through it. Discussing basically all the points that we heard tonight, because we've had a year of getting feedback from many people and organizations, in addition to the testimony tonight, which, by the way, I appreciate everybody coming out and sharing their perspectives. It's important that we do that, and I think that's it's good for us to hear. But nothing struck me as unique or new with anything that I heard. That we've been discussing this for a long time, including that paragraph in that language, which has no legal problem. Let's pretend it didn't come from a law. I'd be okay with the word honesty. We want to promote honesty. We want to promote morality. There is some subjectiveness to that, but morality in general is you treat people with respect and you treat each other with respect. Don't steal, don't lie, and that sort of stuff. I like that word. I'd want it in there even if it wasn't a part of the law. Courtesy, that's a good thing. I think most people agree with that. Obedience to the law, that's an important value that we want to instill in our kids. Respect for the national flag. Joe, I hope you support that. As a veteran, I know you do. The Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon, those are all good, beautiful things that are universally believed in and valued in our society. So even if it weren't attached to a law, I'd still be in favor of having those words in there.
Okay, let me respond to that. First of all, I wasn't giving an opinion on that paragraph. I was talking about the process. Okay, the process in general. In terms of that paragraph, I probably want to think about that a little bit more. I would want to hear probably more what Dustin's talking about in terms of potential changes. But again, if we're going to start readjusting this policy in this meeting, then we're talking about doing what we should be doing when we get together in a workshop as a committee and doing the work then.
And I guess I'm saying, I don't think that we need to, that we have been very thorough.
Well, so as it relates to process, we have first reading and second reading. And in the workshops, we didn't take public comment. So we finally got to the point where we said we need to get some public comment. So we have a first reading here at the board meeting. We can approve that. If you look at the past history of policies, they are often changed. And so we can approve the first reading, we can have another workshop, then we can have another second reading. We've actually, I became aware that my memory was correct, that we used to do a first, second, and third reading of policy before we approved them. Somewhere along the way, we moved to 1 and 2. But so I think we can approve the first reading of this policy. Then we could have another workshop. And eventually we'll get it back to a board meeting so we'll get some additional public comment. At that time, we don't have to make it final. As you notice, today we just did a second and final reading. But we have readings at public board meetings so that we can get comment.
Yeah, and I'm totally in support of all of that. What I'm saying though is if there is a significant amount of change that needs to be done, and we agree there's a significant amount of change to be done, and if I'm convinced there's a significant amount of change that needs to be done, then my vote's going to be a certain way. And I'm going to vote on that because we've got a motion. I will vote. Now, what my vote will happen after I've heard the rest of the discussion. Okay, but what I'm hearing right now, as we begin just hashing out this one paragraph, this one 3-line paragraph, is all this discussion. Now, are we going to do that with several other paragraphs too?
Yes.
Okay, and if we are,
Today.
then
What if I go really fast and then you disagree with everything I say?
so
Are we doing that now?
agree or disagree. It's just if we need to do the work, then we need to do the work. So I'm done with my little spiel.
And just from a process standpoint, Gary, in the past, we've had a first reading where we've made changes.
Mhm.
And then we've approved it.
Yeah.
And then we've seen it in the second reading and we've made some more changes and we approve it there. It can be part of the process to make some changes. But the concern is that it's gonna be a long night if we dive into it.
Well, that's what I
Or
would
the
do.
need more time.
Major changes. We're doing, I mean, if it's a tweak here or there, fine, but if we're going into paragraphs and things, I think, Joe, I agree with you that we're not ready for that. We do have a motion on the table. We can continue to talk. We do have some
I mean, I'm still interested in what Dustin's saying.
Can yeah, I mean, I could give a quick outline and if you want to avoid discussion, so at least can gauge what I feel like I'm doing I'm turning in my homework because the last meeting we had, there was some. I kind of said I still think there should be some time spent on this and I was asked to present something, so I can just go quickly through.
Go ahead, yeah. Do you write your name on the top?
The dog
Forget
ate
to
it.
turn- write your
No.
name in.
Yeah, so. I think you've heard this one from me before, and I still think there's enough of a concern from a couple of the legal responses regarding our definitions and the use of the term instructional materials has a specific use or definition in the state. We use it as a broad overarching, we call the policy instructional materials, and then we define it as kind of instructional materials, the umbrella of all these other subcategories of definitions. One recommendation I had is to just call it materials or education materials and reinstate the term instructional materials because that has a meaning, a legal meaning. So that was this second one, I think third one, I guess.
Do you want to talk about it?
Well, I mean, we certainly can. I was just gonna maybe go through, it's not exhaustive list, but a list of the things that I had flagged and kind of the quick, what the issue is and maybe a quick recommendation.
OSBA coined that term and they titled this policy. That's why we use that, but continue.
Yeah, and I do remember last time you guys were giving me what is typically some ambiguity between state and federal, and the use of the term, it's already out there. It's not specifically clear. So I get that. The other one, so some of these we've already addressed. So I just want to, for the benefit of folks in the room and online too, we've addressed a concern related to the definition of a term called other materials. That would be vague. We actually deleted that. There is a concern in the first section of selection criteria. Actually, at the time, it was the first paragraph. We combined them, but regarding essentially the phrase, again, it's kind of this context thing. We say the following selection criteria serve as guidelines to ensure instructional materials align with the district goals and state standards while reflecting the unique values, needs, and priorities of our local community. I think the flag that was raised was regarding the latter clause, while reflecting the unique values, needs, and priorities of our local community. And there's a reference to the PICO and how that lawsuit kind of made that clear distinction that you can't have kind of this local bar or whatever. So anyway, again, my thing is if it's not really adding to the meat and potatoes of the policy, and it's just going to create some sort of like legal argument that we're not using the right terms and stuff, I don't know if it's even required. It would read without it that the following selection criteria serve as guidelines to ensure instructional materials align with the district goals and state standards, period. So that was another item of just trying to remove possible legal objection. The next one was in the very next sentence, it states these criteria demonstrate the district's commitment to providing high quality, inclusive, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate resources for students. I think it just goes back to that same, it was the same flag again, about it's using a definition under a federal appropriations statute instead of an Oregon legal definition. So it's getting into like, hey, you're using that language in the wrong place and it's not appropriate. If you delete it, I don't think it changes our policy in any way. So that was the flag there and maybe a recommendation there. It would basically read after that, simply referring to the criteria. They establish the foundation for evaluating and selecting instructional materials with further clarification provided in the subsequent section. It would just be a very straightforward paragraph at that point without any of the contextual stuff.
So you keep that last sentence?
Yeah. Hope I'm not going too fast, but I'm just trying to hit these ones and then be done with it. The next one we've actually addressed, it's in item 7, and we did hear about that criteria item number 7. And we heard some objection in general to to that, but in a couple different ways. So this is an interesting issue. So the legal objection, and we heard it again tonight, is without a clear definition, is legally concerning and is also likely unconstitutionally vague. So this was reviewed prior to some of the work that we had done, and I felt like we addressed it already by adding more specific language. But then I think some community comments, some of the letters I've read in emails object to the specific defining of the term. So it's one of these, legally, there's some objection, a flag raised that if we're too vague, there's a problem there. And then there's a whole other side that if we're getting too specific, there's a flag there. So I think we addressed it, I think, but then now it's still probably
Well,
a challenge area.
Yeah, the specificity is to make sure we are on strong legal ground.
Mhm.
So the comments that were coming back legal is, hey, you need to be more specific rather than vague. So it's very specific that we're not talking about discrimination in any way. And it's very specific up front on the front page that we're not talking about discriminating. We're talking about extremely sexual content as described right here. And so by making it specific, it made it stronger legally. And there may be some feelings and sentiments that we don't like it, but from policy work, we made it more sound.
Yeah, and I addressed this by saying I felt like we addressed the legal concern, but I've also heard other concerns. And I don't know if those are legal or not, but just by going more specific now, we're, trying to address that, but it's created some other concerns. So I'm not recommending necessarily a change, but I know that's a topic that needs to be reviewed.
I guess just to touch on that, even if we pass this first reading and we go back to a policy committee, I would not be in favor of being more vague to satisfy feelings about it, but jeopardize us legally. I think we need to stay specific like we are. So I'm just expressing my feeling about it. Whether we're talking about it here or at a policy workshop later, I'm going to be singing the same song because I want to make sure it's legal and strong. And that it's clear to everybody, we are not discriminating. We are just talking about specific sexual content across the board. That's why it has to be specific.
So
after the last meeting where technically I voted not to put this to first reading, thinking as Joe does now that we have more work to do. There are specific terms used in the ORS 336. The ORS 167060 to 167095. And there again, things have been changed up a little bit, and when it comes right down to it, I would rather they stayed in the ORS instead of being put in my face in policy. So I think there is more work to be done. And
is that in reference to item
yes,
7?
it is.
Can you give us the ORS again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
So ORS 167.060 to 167.095.
As soon as that. You have more after that, just
So
I'm sorry, Debbie, that's in reference to selection criteria, item number 7.
Yes.
And do we reference this ORS? I don't see it at the end.
Well, this came from references that Mr. Richardson gave Tanya, and when I asked about what exactly, where is that? This is what she passed along to me. So it's on sexual conduct and sexual excitement. And it refers directly to number 7. When Gary said, well, I'm taking this straight from the ORS. Well, it's coming from the ORS in somewhat, but there are things. And one of the testimonies mentioned another word that was used that isn't in one of the places, so. Yeah. So. There again, I don't think we're ready to have approval of a first reading. I know personally, I don't vote for things that I don't approve of.
You have more yet, though, still, right?
So I have a few more, but I'm not, but basically I think for the benefit of the board and for the community that's listening, I just want to review what we've already done. I'm not recommending any change based on my concern. So, because after reviewing it, I think we've already addressed it. So if you don't mind, I'll just share those 3. So under school library materials, and we heard it tonight too, and so I think that's why I think it's good to address. There was legal concern. We heard concern tonight about the process involving the community. We did have a draft, and that was what the legal was referring to at the time, that talked about subcommittee or this sort of thing. We removed that. It simply says all school library materials will be selected by a librarian following established selection criteria. Such materials will contain suitable readability levels. So it's removed all of that. So in my opinion, it's addressed it.
Yeah, just to speak on that, Dustin, I appreciate you bringing that up, because one of the ways, something that's important as an elected school board where we represent families and parents, we want to have as much transparency as possible, and parental involvement where feasible. And so one of the original ideas was to have sort of a selection committee similar to what we already have for curriculum, where there would actually be some parental involvement up front, helping to select and review things on the front end. That was met with quite a bit of resistance. And so in listening to those concerns, we decided, okay, maybe not a committee, but the way that we are interjecting transparency and parental involvement is with the 25-day review. So I'm just pointing that out for the record because that did come up several times. We backed off what we were originally doing in response to concerns, and the 25-day review is how we are involving the public and how we are improving transparency in that process. And it's very similar to what we already do with curriculum. So wanted to make that statement since you brought it up.
Okay. Actually, I'll skip this other one because I don't think it's that relevant for tonight. But the last one is in regards to a statement regarding staff discipline if the policy is not followed. We significantly changed that. I think there was concern about provision. It was too vague and provisions for clarity and that sort of thing. I still have heard some concerns specifically probably to the 25-day thing, but well, maybe that's not directly related to this, but the statement now at the very end, it just says all district staff are responsible for adhering to this policy. So it wasn't getting into specific, like what sort of discipline or that sort of thing. So from a legal standpoint, I feel like it addressed it. That was my main thing. A lot of these weren't like going one way or another on my personal opinion about the language. It was really just trying to put out there some proposed changes that just make sure we're doing our best to stay out of legal trouble if there's already concerns about some of the language. And if they essentially don't dramatically change the meat and potatoes of the policy, maybe there's some opportunity for deletion. So that was that.
Excellent, Dustin. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of remind myself and others and some of this has just recently been discussed. From the outset, when we received the first draft that was put together and presented to us, significant changes have been made. The original draft had specific vocabulary, profanity vocabulary, specific words, like in number 7 right now in terms of sexual acts. Okay, those are no longer in there. The selection committee idea was batted around probably over 3 meetings, and that's been eliminated. The statement regarding accountability for those who are responsible for the work that's done specifically in the library we were talking about, where we even had the word termination in there, was eliminated. Thank goodness. Because that kind of language doesn't need to be in any of the policies specifically that we're concerned about.
How many more we need to take that out of?
Well, those are different kinds. Those had to do with legalities. Dropped the review period from 60 to 25 days. That's what we were talking about originally. And our conversation, a great deal was about serving the parents, giving the parents the opportunity to have a say in their children's education. And that's really important. Now, I appreciated the comments regarding the 25-day period, but the 25-day period, eliminating that means everything arrives before it's reviewed. And I don't really have myself a problem with a pre-review. I don't see a huge problem with that. I don't run a library, so I don't know how that impacts the operation. But I've certainly run schools that had libraries, and we always had a review before books were purchased in those libraries, and it worked. Now, that's those libraries, that's not this library. To me, what I see as most troubling, from what I hear, is this impression that the way this policy is written is discriminatory towards people who don't fall in the norms, the perceived norms. And to me, that's where the biggest discussion needs to occur, is how do we create a policy that ensures that the reader and the people that are responsible for adhering to the policy understands, even though the comment at the beginning says non-discriminatory, that it's very clear that this is not directed to the LGBTQ community whatsoever. If you're making that argument, then what you're saying is the LGBTQ community talks a lot more about sexual activity than the heterosexual group. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think all kids do. Been around them all my life. Okay. So I think the question for me is, how does this policy read that nobody feels by the content that's in this policy that it's directed towards a specific group of people? Because that is not the intent of this board at all. And I could speak for everybody on this board. We have never, ever thought that we were doing something to hurt one specific member of the community because of their sexual identity. But how do we get over that? How do we get through that? How do we word this policy so that's very clear that we're talking about descriptors and language that presents an image and presents a thought that impacts any kid, regardless of their identity. So I'm still concerned we need to work on that aspect of it a bit. Because you listen to the talk tonight, there were probably 5 or 6 people that saying this policy discriminates against LGBTQ. Now it says right on the top, we don't. But the impression's still there. Okay, so how do we word it? How do we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, but make sure that we're truly expressing to the community and the school that this is really what we mean is we're talking about impacting everybody in a positive way.
Joe, I agree. I too wish that that misconception were not there, because it is false, and that's, you know, for that, and obviously legal reasons and personal desire, that's why we exactly wanted to make clear that the district shall not prohibit or refuse you know, books and materials based off of protected class status. So I think from the beginning, that was a desire. And why that misconception persists, I can't speak to that. But to me, it's pretty clear that we're talking about specific sexual acts. It's not talking about who's committing them.
Well, yeah, and an example of that though is, and it was brought up, the word sodomy. That can be defined a lot of different ways.
That's a legal term. The definition is basically oral sex. It's illegal.
No, there's other definitions for it.
Correct, but the legal way that it is used is to describe mainly oral sex. It can describe that as well, so. But if you want to come up with a better word or just say oral sex or something.
Let's keep saying it.
But I don't, I mean, I agree. I wish the misconception didn't persist, but we could really get convoluted if we try to dance around people's perceptions.
So to get to where we got to at the end of the workshop took some amount of compromise, people accepting things they weren't in total agreement with, because we're not going to come up with a policy that each one of us is satisfied exactly with the way it's written. We're going to have to come up with a policy that the board as a whole can agree with, which is where we thought we got to at the end of the workshop. So if we want to spend some more time having debates and changing paragraphs and stuff like that, we can do that. But we did get far enough along with compromises by people to say this is close enough for us to get it out there and have our first public reading and get public input. And I think it's still done well enough that we can advance it. We can still go back and have another workshop, but the policy is close enough that we can continue to move this policy forward.
So we have another workshop on June 24th. We have a board meeting on August 12th. So under that scenario, we would be spending time on June 24th on the issues Joe's bringing up. Probably actually talking more about the issues I'm bringing up and maybe some of the ones that the community has brought up. And you're saying that can be done even with so we're approving it to go to the next board meeting, but in the meantime, we're going to work on it.
It doesn't even have to appear on the agenda for a second reading at the next board meeting.
Right.
And the next.
I would be much more comfortable with
I'm
that.
sorry. Okay, the next board meeting is July 1st. Sorry, so June 24th is our workshop. July 1st is the next board meeting.
Yes, we would decide it June 24th if we were ready
Okay.
to go back to second reading.
That gets a little tricky when you have a new board member starting July 1.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable if there's a way to do this appropriately, that we look at the August. We do it the August meeting, that we actually. I'm okay, I mean, if we can go through the process, then okay, we can have we can approve the first reading. As long, and if we're gonna have another workshop, great, I think there's enough that came up. Between what was heard tonight, which. To me is, pardon my expression. Ass backwards. I would like to heard all of this discussion. About a year ago. Okay, and then worked on the policy. But what we did is we worked on the policy, and I appreciate what Nate says, that, okay, we heard all the no, we didn't really hear all the arguments. Okay, we heard some tonight, and we probably didn't hear all of the arguments tonight either. But we heard a lot more tonight than we had before. And I like the idea of having another meeting and talking about this a little bit, but I also realize that we have a board change going on in July. And when the new board member comes on board, I hope that person's up to speed. Because she's gonna be part of the decision-making process. So I like the idea of, if it's approving the first reading, great, as long as we can go through and we give time for the process to work itself through appropriately.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't
Sure.
rush it just for the sake of
That's on
rushing
the
it.
agenda. Will you put that on the agenda for the next policy meeting? Or
So, point of order, if, the first reading is defeated, doesn't necessitate us starting, I mean, stopping the process. We could have that June 24th policy meeting, still discussing the things that we are talking about here and that we have heard. We don't have to vote for approval of the first reading if there are enough problems. You know, been mentioned that in the past we've had approval of first readings, knowing that there's little things that need to be discussed or worked out, wordsmithing kinds of things. This goes beyond wordsmithing in my opinion, and I know that I'm not going to vote for something that is this flawed. But I think, you know, I'm willing to work on it on June 24th. I'm here till June 30th.
So here's what I would say, is that if it's voted in the affirmative tonight, you can make the changes that you've talked about. And then when you bring it up in July or August, whatever the board decides, it would be a second reading. If you voted no tonight on a first reading, and you worked on it June 24th, July, August, whatever, however that works, then it would go back to a first reading, and then you would do a second reading. So, but you could, as I've said before, just determine that you're going to do a first and second reading in one meeting. There's no law that says they have to be a month apart.
So theoretically, tonight,
is irrelevant.
We
Yeah, at some point, it doesn't matter what we're
We're
voting.
spending a lot of time on this.
Saying the same
I
thing.
I would strongly disagree with that. I'm very happy to hear from the public, so.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
It's not, you're right.
I didn't mean
No,
that.
no, no.
I
This is
meant
really
But how we-
important.
Yeah,
what you're voting on, whether you vote yes or no, it can still have massive changes before it's voted on
Right.
again.
The
I
outcome.
think of this in terms
It was
of,
very good to hear from folks. That's not what I was saying at all.
I think when I
Thank you for
first,
correcting me.
when I first started on the board. Well, I think everybody jumped on the select or on the policy committee except for me, but I think prior to that, it was not a formal board meeting. Because it was less than 4 board members were on the policy meeting. And so if something like this came to the board as a first reading and we felt it needed more work. Generally, we would vote no and say, hey, policy committee, go work on this some more.
Exactly.
So I feel like, in my opinion, that's the bar of voting yes or no. Is if it needs significant work, it's no, it needs to go back.
But
So-
so my point was, just to be clear, if we chose, we could do a first, second, final, and approve this policy and implement it tonight. just so
Not
you
right
know.
now with the current motion we can.
But-
No, but
But
this
yeah.
board has
do
that
that, yeah.
power
Correct.
to
sure,
implement
yeah,
this policy
so-
as written tonight, if we wanted to.
Back to no, however it gets voted, it's not gonna affect the
Right.
process moving forward. We're still gonna take all the comments. We're gonna review it in the next workshop. We can do a first or a second or everything in the next board meeting.
That is correct.
And in August, the board could meet and completely toss the policy or 100% rewrite it. So.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to address, there was a community comment tonight about, curious why the 25-day wait and why, maybe it's not consistent with the OSBA draft. One thing, and there was some context there about criteria, and one thing that I remember about, our initial discussions on this policy is I think everybody on the board agreed that we needed a new policy. So even voting no doesn't mean that we're just saying this, we're not working on it anymore. It just means the language isn't where we want it to be. I think we all agree it needs to be updated. We've received the draft from OSBA. Now we have SB 1098. We have everything, all the legal, everything we have community input. So, I think we're set to really get it done, and that I think we know that we're gonna have some sort of policy. We just want it to be
Right.
right. Yeah.
With that. Can we vote? Have more?
We can vote. I don't know if there's any more discussion. I just wanted to throw that out there. I felt like.
No.
Okay, let me say one more thing. I want to make sure there's absolute clarity here. We can vote yes on the first reading. And then we will still have a workshop. We can still discuss this thing a bit more. And take in the information that we're discussing and have received potentially.
Yes.
And then it comes up for the second reading.
Correct.
The question for me is the second reading, when? Because my concern about doing it in July 1st is, again, we have a new board member that has very little information on this at this point in time. And that could have a significant impact on the vote. So how can we address that concern that I have?
Well,
We
to
do
be
it.
honest, your safest way is
Yeah.
voted no on it, right? If that's your concern,
Bring it back.
right, and then but you're gonna have to otherwise trust that your fellow board members are going to honor your request to not make a motion on July 1st to do a second reading and plan some workshops in July and let us to work on it.
So with all due respect to our future board member Quinn, thanks for being here, by the way. And hearing all this and keeping so quiet. All of us that are on this board, I'm sure at some point in time had to vote for something that they hadn't been part of the start of, and I know at least 4 of us did when we first came on. There were things that were at second readings by the time we came on the board, absolutely. So, I mean, we can continue to kick this can down the road for another however many months, but everybody in this room seems to have a pretty good idea of the policy and where it's at, maybe not all the nuance of how it got there. But I'm not a big fan of continuing to push the ball backwards, or slow anything down. I would like us to get to an end point, and I agree with Dustin and with Joe wanting it to be right. I think that's what we've been trying to do for a long, long time. Dustin, I appreciate you bringing some of those things up. I think some of those things were addressed, and I also appreciate that. I think you're doing some of that for public visibility into that process. But I don't know how much we're going to continue to change those things once we got to the point that we're at right now. So that being said, I'm fine with like one person's opinion and one board member to pass and talk about it again in, you said June 24th.
Yes.
But the idea of continuing to push this down the road, man, I don't know how long we want to keep dragging this thing through the ringer, personally.
Yeah, I'll respond again. I appreciate very much all the work the board has put on on this. I mean, it has been arduous to say the least. I would love for this thing to be done. I would love to be done right with regards to being a new board member voting on a second vote. This is a very different policy. This one has been full of controversy, full of community concern. It's much bigger than the ones that we voted on. So it certainly deserves the effort. So I don't want to do it because we've worked so long. I don't want to say, now it's time. It's not. Let's make the decision and do it until we're sure we've done it right. And so that impacts my vote. So I know where I am.
Okay. Member Sable,
Yes.
Member Richardson,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
No.
Member Dibdall,
Yes.
Member Smith,
No.
Member Brownell,
No.
Member Wilkins.
No.
More work to be done.
Approval of resolution 2425-6, budget adoption for the 2025-26 school year.
This is a form.
Oh, they're ready.
It's not.
Is that what this is? That what Sam gave us?
We both have it on our notes. It might, if you remembered.
Resolution 6.3.
Member Schmidt moves that we approve resolution 242506 budget adoption for the 25-26 school year, 6.3.
Joe, is there a second?
Member Smith seconds.
Having a second, is there discussion?
Yeah, is our dollar amount off by one from what we originally? $1?
What did I just sign tonight?
That was,
Is that paper around?
yes.
My number from our budget meeting ends in 77,
No,
not
the one that
78.
signed.
Hold on.
No, it's $1, but I just wanted to make sure that we did.
Did you find $1 somewhere, Sam?
I look everywhere I can.
And it may have only been
Check your
a
pocket.
couple of pennies, to be honest, but.
Is it short or long? So I'll be glad to throw $1 in.
78, so it's off by.
The one I signed was 977. Tonight on this guy, and what you gave us had 9. So we just wasted $1 talking about it, but
Nothing more than that.
More than that.
my time's 3, so.
I can go fix it right now and you can talk amongst yourselves.
Does that need to get signed tonight? That's the question, right? This one, that should they
Yeah,
match?
can't we?
They're saying your number here.
This guy
ends
is
in
what I
7.
signed, and I think that was at the budget.
This can be signed later.
That's from the budget meeting.
Right. Well, if that's what we're having to meet, then I can go make this, I can fix whatever the error is and bring it right back, but I don't know what the.
I don't think
There
it
and bring it right back.
matters,
9-6.
but we can still move forward, approve it, and move on. That's just
So
What will the actual number be for them to put on in a second?
this number,
Read the number, please.
Okay,
I've got it here.
as Justin so eloquently spread it out before. 141,296,977.
So the motion is to approve the resolution
41,296.
as read by Sam.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. That dollar out,
Concerned that we do the.
don't spend it all. With 1 minute. Oh, sorry.
Do we feel comfortable moving to a vote
Yes.
with as read by Sam?
Yes.
Tanya?
Member Sable,
Yes.
Member Richardson,
Yes.
Member Schmidt.
Yes.
Dibdall,
Yes.
Yes.
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Will.
Yes. 7.1,
Chair Wilkins,
yes.
I move that the district administration bring the budget numbers to us in the form of the template that was presented at the budget meeting to the board by September 30th.
About October 31st.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
It
just
doesn't
said-
exist. Sam needs time to create it.
Okay.
Gary meant October 31st.
That's what it is.
I meant October 31st.
Is there a second?
Member Dibdall seconds. Are we talking about the presentation that you gave us at the end of the budget meeting that was to give us easier information to share with the public about the budget?
Yeah.
Very clean
Yeah, it was
line
that
item, one
template.
sheet of paper or so? That's what we're
Well, it
referring to.
wasn't on sheet of paper, but yeah.
That costs more than $1 to provide that.
We've never created it, so Sam's gonna work with Gary to make it
They're gonna work
look like
on
the
me.
way they want.
Okay.
I do appreciate that because I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you spend $141 million? And so it would be nice to have a fairly concise document to help talk through that instead of, well, let's go talk to Sam and Tim.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, we discussed. Can we vote, Tanya?
Member Sable?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Member Dipdahl?
Yes.
Member Smith?
Yes.
Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Wilkins?
Yes. Shall we move?
7.0 full communication.
Yeah, our
And,
communications
it's
full
all
basic
listed.
credit report. Does anybody have any questions? 7.1,
So we have to spend all this by
July 31st, 2026.
26.
Yep.
Well. I have just a question. So when is our next facilities meeting and what's our process to? I guess decide on the remaining projects? Is it at the facilities meeting level? Does it come to the board? Does it need to come to the board?
Well, I don't think the facility committee meeting when they last met was ready to send anything to the board.
But does it need to come to the board?
I think does, and so it should happen sooner rather than later. We should probably have a facility committee in July.
Yeah, I
And,
think there was some
try
homework
and
that,
get some. Yes, there
you
was
wanna
homework.
maybe just add some context for everybody, just. Sorry to just throw it out there, but.
Yeah, a couple things. Gary's motion passed. You have until October 31st to create maybe for the extra month. And do you have that paper for everybody?
Yeah, and you have $1 less in your budget to accomplish it.
So, there is that one. There's the official one. And then the others are printing out the yellow one.
I use this for notes anyway, so.
Good,
On the back.
good. Let me go grab the rest. So a few weeks ago, the facility committee met, we discussed what to do with some of the remaining full faith and credit funds. Tommy, of course, the one night you asked questions, Tommy is not here, so that's helpful. I think we have around $5 million left to spend on full faith and credit, depending on what some of the roofing projects come in at Grants Pass High. I haven't seen a dollar figure for the core building at this point. I don't know if anybody has. Michelle, have you? Nope. Robert?
Just to clarify so that's like, there's cash flow spend, but as far as commitments go, I think.
Right.
What was left to like, hey, we project that we'll have 2 million, wasn't it that?
We
the number?
projected we have 2, but we will have more than 2 because some of the projects have come in less than we.
Okay,
In
so
that
A, we don't
anticipated.
fully know, but we know we have some
we do
money
have some.
to
So
go ahead and commit to some new projects.
correct. And so what we're trying to do is create a list of those new projects for the board to review. But Tommy was given some homework by the facility committee to get some answers for them. Sam, am I saying that right?
Still working on my phone.
Tommy was given some homework to get some answers for the facility committee. For us to come back and review with them so that we could bring a final list of projects to the overall board. Yes. Okay.
For
So,
example, just some cost data on
Correct.
what it would cost to do a few
right, so,
projects that are
one of the
maybe
big-
high on our list.
right, some of the big projects we have, HVAC at core building at North. Had a pretty serious request for some water being run to Redwood because last day of school was a disaster. They handled it with grace employees like they always do, but so some really expensive projects out there to look at and not enough funds to do them all. But Tommy was supposed to get us some dollar figures, a little bit cleaner look on how these funds could be spent for the best overall impact on the district.
One other one I recall is he was gonna look into kind of a swampy drainage issue at North.
Correct.
And what it
Yes.
would take to resolve what's been there for a long time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well,
On
so
the
some
fields.
conversation about perhaps some upgrades to the overall athletic fields of both north and south. So, so the board will have some big decisions to make, but we will get those to you. Trying to set something up for facility,
That work?
June 30th?
June 30th facility folks.
It's Chad and I and everybody else is you, right? Gary?
Yeah.
You on?
Yeah. Yeah, June 30th. Okay. Robert, you're not doing anything on June 30th, are you?
I was planning to be in a facility committee.
Thank you.
With a tan.
Hey, Jim, I won't be there.
Here.
Want you to know.
Slacker.
I know, sorry.
You're still working on June 30th, right? Are you still an employee? So, yeah, we'll get those. The only thing, the reason that might change is if Tommy doesn't have us some numbers, but both Tommy and Nate are out. And so they were working on those. But yeah, some big choices.
I just think that with the deadline, it's important to put this on
Get it
the
going.
fast track and get
Absolutely.
our best guess of the priority projects. Have the facility committee agree, bring it to the board and
Mhm.
Get it.
Okay. Yep, agreed. We'll get on it.
7.2 enrollment report. Any questions?
Earn enrollment is 0.
We have a problem.
They are
We're
all
missing
going.
$1 and we have no kids.
They are all going.
Out of state travel, 7.3. Moving on to reports. 8.1 annual GPSD 7 equity team report. Courtney Tucker. Victoria. And Krista.
You just did what I was going to do.
Oh.
So we do have an equity advisory committee. Met throughout the year, and Courtney Tucker and Krista York are here to give our annual report.
Hello. So, my name is Courtney Tucker. I worked at Parkside for the last 5 years, moving to North Middle School next year. I've been part of the Equity Advisory Committee for the last 2 years.
I'm Krista York. I'm a small business owner and then a mom of 2 kids in the district. And also, most of my family worked in the district and still works in the district, so.
So we're here to kind of talk about what the Equity Advisory Committee is. It's a state mandated committee that is elected by stakeholders within the TIDE committee. Our job, we support District 7 by meeting about quarterly, sometimes a little bit more, to review policy and ensure that our district is complying with the diverse needs of our students. Oh, the clicker. Oh, look. There we are. There we go. So we've got several members that have been elected. These are our adult members. I think there's teachers and community members and parents. And then we do have some student members. We have 4 of them. Our major task this year was to work with schools to create welcoming environments for all stakeholders. So we wanted kids to walk into the school and feel welcomed, as well as parents and staff. This year, we started at the beginning of the year, we looked at the 2023-2024 Youth Truth results and found common themes. We then took and looked at an area of focus, which we came to the need in welcoming environments. We attended Tide meetings throughout the year that were set in different locations throughout our district, where we did a tour and completed surveys with each school. We focused on common areas and a few classrooms, but our main areas were the office, cafeteria, libraries, etc. We sent out teams to some of the schools which did not host a Tide meeting to survey the same areas within their buildings. Then we compiled as best we could all of the results. We compared the current year's Youth Truth survey with the past results. And then we reviewed results from the school tours and came up with common themes based on areas of strength and areas of needs of improvement.
So we didn't include all of the Youth Truth survey because it's just a lot of data, but we picked My School Creates a Friendly Environment. And each year overall as a district, we have continued to grow, which is pretty amazing. So this is Gladiola and then the Grants Pass High School. These are your middle schools and GP Flex. So you can see that we continue to have a pretty high standard from, this is a parent view. These are parent numbers. And then elementary as well. So each year we continue to grow as a district, which is great. So some of these that we've also seen some areas of growth in are the cultural summary measure, which describes the degree to which families believe their school fosters shared goals, respect, fairness, and diversity. Also feeling valued in their school, and again, their school that creates a friendly environment. So through the walkthroughs, obviously when we got the information back, it's every school has certain areas where they need to grow and certain areas where they're really strong in. We think the overall goal really with the district is create consistency within the schools. So when everyone's going to an elementary school or they're going to a middle school or going to a high school, they're experiencing some of the same welcoming environments that are important to our community and the kids and the teachers. Some of the key points were strengths in some schools and some were weaknesses in some schools. So light, bright classrooms could attribute to also to newer schools or older schools, soft paint colors, diverse student recognition and entryways of the school, positive affirmation signs in common areas such as hallways and entrance, visual keys and dual languages in common areas were really important, and just more diverse representation of books and visuals in the classrooms.
So those are recommendations?
These were all areas of where people were like, oh, I really like this part of the school, or I felt this needed to be more in the school. And so some schools had really strong areas, like maybe their entryway was really strong in diverse student recognition, where some entryways maybe didn't have that. So it was really, and it's personal preference, right? You can walk into a school and what's welcoming to you is different than might be what's welcoming to me. So kind of taking all that information and putting it into what could be done is tricky when you're dealing with lots of different opinions and personal viewpoints, I think.
These were taken from the tours. So the Tide members, stakeholders, different people that volunteered to go into these environments, and this is their recommendation.
Yeah. So I think taking the data we collected this year and finding ways for implementing appropriate changes within the common areas throughout the schools in our district is really part of what could be looked at from some of this data. And it could be anything from painting the cafeteria to creating more of this. Every entryway should have student recognition, or we have some of the similar positive affirmation signs in each entryway. But as an equity advisory committee, obviously, we're looking forward to continue to provide feedback and to assist the district in making changes to a more diverse and equitable learning environment for our students and our team. That's it. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, time for a little expulsion summary for this past year. Welcoming environments and unwelcoming. So
strategic facilities.
correct. So I know you're gonna have trouble seeing that. Is there any way to make this unfocused in a larger?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. Let's get that. That team is amazing. So that what you see in front of you here is a comparison from 23-24 to 24-25, just to kind of see where we're at. This year, we totaled 33 expulsions. Last year it was 32, so we're right in that same range. Last year we had expulsions at Gladiola, Grants Pass High, North Middle, South Middle. This year at Gladiola, Grants Pass High, GP Flex, North Middle, South Middle, and Parkside. So just a few other building sites. If we look at our the category that will stand out the most for expulsions would be marijuana. So 23-24 school year, that was 37.5% of our expulsions for a total of 12 of our 32 expulsions. Okay. The second most common reason for expulsion 23-24 school year were assault and fighting with 5 and harassment also with 5. And if you go over all the way to the right-hand side of that document, you'll see some of those total numbers that I just reflected there. So you see these are the assault fighting and the harassment, and then that was marijuana. Okay. If we were to look at where those numbers are at for the 24-25 school year, so we're going to scroll all the way down. Okay, and we'll go over to the far right again. You'll see those numbers, marijuana at 54.5%. And then, but on the good news front, our assault and fighting went from 5 last year to 2 this year, and harassment went from 5 to 0. So ask for some feedback from some of our administrators at those levels about why did it go down at those levels? And what was described is in some cases, there was some pretty significant, bluntly, criminal activity that happened that had to result in the expulsion of some students. Some other comments were that after they saw some of that information or saw that where the problem areas were, they just did a better job of locating staff in places where they could hopefully be preventative. And when they heard rumors of things about to happen, meeting with those students ahead of time, bringing families into the fold too, to talk about the conflicts before they escalated further. Breaking down the marijuana violations this year, really different at the high school level compared to the middle school level. 100% of the middle school marijuana violations were edibles. So they were either cookies, cupcakes, or in most cases, the little edibles you see that look like fruit snacks. So at the high school, it was much different. That was the least common method of marijuana consumption or distribution or possession. The most common is vaping. So they had it in an oil, THC pen, that kind of thing. Second most common is the actual traditional plant that you would see, or the buds from that plant that were either in a pipe or in maybe a rare case, rolling papers. And then, as I said, edibles being the third most. I was really struck when Nevin Van Manen came and spoke and talked to you with our DARE officer and they talked about the DARE program at 5th grade and the verbiage that's used by the DARE officer and the tools being given to our 5th grade students so they know how they can be armed with verbiage, with ways to get out of situations, those kinds of things. Some of those exact same things are done in our expulsion hearings. So when I am meeting with the middle or high school administration, or in this case, one case elementary administration, and I'm talking with the student and talking with the parent, there is oftentimes a little bit of lack of a maybe parent education piece. And so we talk about when you return to the school environment, who are those students that you have been around? And we write the names down that have not been a good influence for you, that have really pulled you in a direction that you don't want to be in, that you don't want to go, but you have ended up in. And we write those names down. Who are those students that you feel like are good role models, that you like being around, that you know are a good influence on you, that you can depend on, that you can trust? And we write those names down. And we talk about how to make contact with those good influences and what that's going to look like in the school setting when they return. We also talk about those times of when they get in trouble. Is it during the lunch hour? It's pretty common. Or break period, or if it's in between a class. How are we going to avoid that so you don't get pulled in? And our administrators are very good at finding and identifying. I know Shani works with some of these students too. And they've identified for some they need a partner when they use the restroom because they can easily be pulled in by someone and tempted to do something they shouldn't be doing in the bathroom when they're in there. And so we've said, you will always have someone with you when you go to the bathroom, so you're not tempted to do that. So some of those same conversations and tools that our DARE officers using, we're trying to equip our students that could have an addiction problem or just could have been pulled in for a one time or second time, third time use. So just a little bit of an overview of what that hearing might look like on some cases. Any questions related to expulsion data from this school year?
Yeah, thank you for that, Ryan. So these percentages seem like they've changed a lot in the last 3 years. I think the first information we were presented with marijuana was like 70%-ish, 75, if, as I recall. I don't see it up there, so that's my memory. But have you seen a change in behaviors towards less focused on marijuana use and more dispersed, or?
Good question. So some of the incidents, there's no such thing as a low-level drug incident. However, if you remember that we've kind of changed our approach this second year because the state said, you're expelling more kids than any other district in the state. Maybe look at your practices and see if you can find some other ways of handling that. And bluntly, what we saw is we have ninth graders, when they're fully expelled, there's an almost zero chance that they're going to graduate. And so we try to find more remedies to keep them in the school setting. So part of what you're referencing, I don't think that we have seen a decrease in marijuana. It's more how many have ended up in the expulsion, in an expulsion hearing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Debbie?
Well, so zero harassment, this sounds wonderful.
Zero expulsions for harassment. There's still harassment.
That makes more sense to me. So I know that for some parents, that's a reason to not have their kids go to school. Is bullying and harassment. So how are we moving forward and getting down to zero?
Wouldn't we love to all get to zero incidents, right? I do know that our administrators work really hard about meeting with kids. I've mentioned some of the sniffing out problems before they happen. There's been a lot of contracts of students placed on contracts in terms of people they have conflict with. And so families are met with, the students are met with when you just have had reoccurring issue after reoccurring issue and you're seeing that it's could blow. They sit those families down and kids down and talk about, this is what it's going to look like in the hallway. You've got to exist in a peaceful environment. We want you here to learn, but you can't be here to learn if you're going to be suspended or worse yet, expelled. And so they've worked really hard with those families to make sure they understand what expectations are. And most cases that's fairly well understood. In some cases, we have really weird dynamics too, where they say, but I like that person, but you're not treating them that way. And so we're going to put some regulations in place to help you understand how to treat them and others.
Ryan, could you share with me some specific examples of what harassment would be and what would lead to an expulsion for that?
So the state actually makes us categorize those in breaking it down. Is it physical harassment? Is it sexual harassment? Is it racial harassment? Or is it just harassment because it doesn't fit one of those categories? So we actually track that data. As you see here, expulsion wise, we haven't had so much of that this year. But overall, if we were to go through Power School, that would be another report outside of an expulsion report. You would see more numbers in that category. We also track that on incidents reported, and then we also track it on outcomes, because sometimes it's reported as, but then after looking at it, it may not actually be, because sometimes we have to teach our student body exactly what that looks like. I mean, harassment is harassment. However, sometimes it may be a mutual combative piece, which is different than one person harassing another.
So it would be verbal name calling, making fun of. Would it be physical?
It could be, and we've honestly, in the world of social media now too, we have kids that'll go after that, and then it spills over to the school, and it creates a real distraction there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we'll hope for.
Clap for everybody else. We're gonna clap for you. You're getting out to the back.
Getting our kids out one at a time, so. Yes.
The question, but I got applauded for raising my hand. That's pretty good. The contract exclusions, how many of those
are going to Gladiola?
So Gladiola is not an expulsion placement site that must be earned in order to attend there. There are some, we have a GPAS program, one separate classroom there that is an expulsion placement site. And there are some students that we say, you work hard, you do what you're supposed to do with the ABCs, attendance, behavior, and academic credit and so forth, then you can earn your way there, but we can't place an expulsion.
Gotcha. So most of them are remaining in place, but they're on contract.
Yes, they may, yeah.
All right,
So,
all right, everybody.
You get two. That's good.
Right, 8.3, financial report. Sam?
Are you sure you've got all your dollars? I'm looking for that dollar. So we're nearing the end here. Gosh, I hate this thing. Can you go 3 more? Yeah, I'll tell you when to stop. You're good. Keep going. Keep going. Heck, right there is perfect. Thank you. So again, every time we skip those, that's all summarized here. So that's why I usually skip it. We're in the last month. The budget is solid. It looks like it'll end up just fine. You can tell by that big tall blue line there. June is when most of the action happens, or 20% of all the expenses happen in June. Most of that's payroll, but there's a lot of using up, budgeted funds that we have for the end of the year. Not really buying things for next year because we can't do that. It would all have to be used in this year some way. And then we have some summer school stuff that will start to hit that as well in June. You can also look in the top one, you see those little tiny green ones, that's how much money we're gonna get in June or the next 3 months. So this is really, we're still completely on, doing very well as far as meeting our budget. We'll know a lot more after the end of this month, and then we'll get into audit and that'll clean some things up too. But again, we continue to nibble down the deficit spending, budget versus reality. Following what we talked about the other night, we're going in the right direction and expect to continue to do so. Any questions?
Does this factor in the summer school funding and expenses, or is that?
No, so
next?
because we didn't know that we were going to get any funding for summer school, there's no revenue in there. However, we will have some expenses in June, not July and August will go to next year, but we will have some expenses because some things will happen in June, a little bit, not very much. But it's not significant enough to change, the outcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Pretty good. Thank you. 8.4, strategic plan update. Ninth grade.
Hello. You guys don't know me, but this is Rochelle Watson. She is our 9th grade success coordinator. Yes, thank you.
Please do it again.
And I'm gonna keep coaching Michelle. We may not all know you, so this is
Sorry,
Michelle Napier.
Michelle Napier, I'm the principal of Grants High School.
Yes,
Dustin
she's a
is
great
the PR
principal.
person we decided. So anywho, okay. So we're just gonna give you kind of a quick update on 9th grade success, some of the things that we've done this year. This does help us with our academic outcomes. It does help us with behavior, with all of the things that we have in place to help support our 9th graders. So this mission was beautifully created by Rochelle. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So we believe that every student can graduate and that every student needs at least a little bit of help. Our mission is to provide students and families with a partner who already knows how Grants Pass High School works. With a partner, a student is never alone and families always know who to turn to for help. So that is the mission of our 9th grade success team and the work that they do. Just a little bit of history. Prior to 2020, we had small groups of staff that would go to meetings, learn how 9th grade on track works, 9th grade success. We would get together and have small student talk meetings, but it wasn't as organized as we would hoped. In 2021, we actually hired Rochelle as our ninth grade success coordinator. We were in the midst of COVID. Rochelle did phenomenal work with this word called Lippy that we might twitch a little bit about, but limited in-person instruction. She made a ton of phone calls as well as our mentors, but we really got our ninth grade success program up and running in the midst of COVID, which was pretty amazing. Currently, we've evolved into teacher team. So we team our ninth grade teachers together. So when we do talk about students, a student will have a group of students will have the same English teacher, the same science teacher, and even this year, the same math teacher. And it just allows us to better serve the kid when everybody knows a little bit more about that kiddo. We've changed ninth grade success spaces. So our ninth grade area now houses all of our mentors with Rochelle and Project Youth Plus, and provides a space for ninth graders to go have lunch, get some help, do what they need during their day. We're continually improving our processes and how we can support ninth graders. And they really spend a lot of time at the middle schools in April and May to get to know the eighth graders. So when they come to the high school, they have familiar faces and it's not just a bunch of strangers, which is super cool. Yeah.
So the people involved with ninth grade success, there's me, the ninth grade success coordinator. We have 4 ninth grade success mentors, classified staff members. And then we really have the vast majority of the teachers belong to the ninth grade teacher team because we're really just putting a ton of supports at that grade level. Things that we do a welcome packet delivery. So every incoming ninth grader who lives within the district will get a hand-delivered welcome packet. And the goal of that is that they see their faces, we make connections, we can have conversations with as many as will answer the door. We have the ninth grade success space, as Michelle already said. Every single ninth grader is assigned a mentor. It's on their power school. So like if they don't know who to talk to or their parents, guardians don't know who to talk to, that's just like that first initial contact point. But some students just need a little more attention as we're transitioning to ninth grade. And so each mentor has about 30 focused students each quarter, and that can shift each quarter. It can be the same 30 kids if they're improving it, but still needing that support. And so we have those focused students. And then the mentors themselves really go into our English and our science classes, because those were the ones this year that were teamed, so that they know what's going on in class. So when the student's like, my teacher never said that, the mentor can be like, well, actually in my notes over here, or I'm pretty sure this or that, right? So they have more direct knowledge of what's going on in those classes, as well as in our Reach for Success class, which is a tier 2 intervention for students who are struggling just a little bit, but still mostly here. So they're failing a couple classes, but they're mostly here. Let's see what we can do to get them some skills. That's what our Reach for Success class is about. We have our student talk meetings, which involves about 70% of the teaching staff, and they go around into different groups and talk about kids who need that little extra oomph to be on track. And then we have been working at our middle schools a lot more, both at North, South, and at GP Flex. We've been there for transitions. So there's just a ton of supports that we have available for our incoming ninth graders. We obviously have our SPED and LEP services, which are helped out by our case managers, our ELD teacher and aides. We have our Summer Bridge program, which welcomes just over 50 incoming ninth graders on campus, where they earn a half credit towards graduation, as well as receiving supports, getting to know teachers, getting to know things around campus. We have our Reach class, which I mentioned previously. We have our mentors and our PY Plus advisor. We now have the Grants Pass High School Junior High, which we're very excited for, which is for our 8th and 9th graders to be on a smaller campus with smaller class size. And then we have our TAPS program, which is our tier 3 for our students who we want to make sure they are here and they're safe, and that we can get them acclimated to school so that hopefully they can be successful moving forward, but have a little bit more struggles. So the role of the mentor, as I said, they each have their focus students. We man our success space so that students always have a place to go to, whether they need a place to eat or just need a place to be like, I need a breath. We have our teacher teams where our mentors, each mentor is assigned a teacher team. So it's one mentor talking to the same little small group of teachers, which is really handy. And then we do our upstream efforts where all of our staff
try to figure out how to support ninth graders before they start to struggle a little bit.
So when we talk about upstream efforts, we have a planner that the ninth grade success team has created that we give to all of our ninth graders to use. And so then if you're a ninth grade teacher, you can always look in the planner and be like, oh, what did you do in English? What did you do in math? As different ways to support kids. We really hammer home relational capacity. Building relationships with kids is one of the best ways to help them feel safe in your classroom. And when they feel safe, they will learn. And so we really want to build relationships with these kiddos. And then removing supply barriers. A lot of our kids come and they don't have a binder, they don't have writing utensils, or they need a calculator or whatever it is that they need. And so the ninth grade success team spends some money to have some supplies ready in the event that the kiddo doesn't have access to those supplies, so that we remove that barrier to their education.
On the relational capacity thing, I will just mention that every year there's a certified and classified staff that are given an award, and almost every year one of the mentors wins it.
Every year, what?
One of the mentors will win that award. Yeah. It's me. Okay, so this year, we talked about 149 students during our student talk meetings. We had our teacher teams, we had our mentors in classes getting to know what was going on, as well as being able to support all students, not just their focus students. We increased our time at the middle schools. One thing we did this year is we did transition lessons. So we didn't just go and be like, oh, we have 40 minutes, let's get you in your classes for next year. We had 3 different lessons. We talked about why high school matters, why it improves your financial circumstances to graduate with a high school diploma. We talked about in detail about high school classes, what would be the best fit for them. And then we used those conversations to enter in their schedule requests. The mentors went into classes at the middle schools, again, to get to know all the incoming 8th graders. And then they did meet and greets with targeted 8th graders that we assume we probably need a little extra time with next year. And then we continued our efforts with our planners this year.
Is that part of the AVID program?
We call our Reach for Success class our AVID Light class. It is a bit of a transition to students who want to go into AVID and would benefit from it. The planner is an AVID strategy. So it's used in all of our classes, but mostly even the AVID teachers in 10th, 11th, at least 10th and 11th, they often are like, hey, you have any extra of those planners? Because I got kids who said they liked it. So it's nice that it's not just used in the 9th grade level. So throughout the years, last year, we ended our data at 80% on track. On track means they would have had 6 credits or more towards their graduation. After credit retrieval efforts, we ended at 84.5. And then this year, I ran the data this week, and before credit retrieval opportunities, we're sitting at 83%. So I'm very excited for that big bump and give a ton of credit to our mentors, our 9th grade teachers, and anyone who helps support 9th graders along the way.
And so we'll have updated data once we get through our credit retrieval.
Over 100 kids today showed up for credit retrieval. We were frantically getting them in their classes. There was no sweating involved by anyone. We were all very fine.
And that's it?
Yeah.
Any questions? Yes, Dustin.
Can you explain GP high school, junior high? My brain didn't connect the dots there.
So, the junior high is going to be a combination of 8th and 9th graders, mainly 9th graders at this point. It's really an opportunity for kids who could potentially struggle with going from middle school to 1,1700 kids, and they want a smaller environment with smaller classes to, in hopes, help them be more successful in their high school career. There's an opportunity. They can go all day at the junior high. They could do a hybrid schedule. So if there's some electives they want to take on the main campus, they're welcome to do that. Or some kids may only want to do a partial day. They will earn high school credit just like our kids do. They're Grants Pass High School kids. They're just located in a smaller building with smaller class sizes, but they'll come and go. They will come up for lunch if they want to come up for lunch. They can eat lunch down there if that's a more comfortable environment for them. The hope is that they spend time at the junior high, and then what's their next path? Is it back to the main campus for the rest of their high school career? Is it over to Gladiola because that smaller environment fits for them? So it's helping them navigate that transition in a smaller space, with some focused attention, with the opportunity to do and be a part of all the things that Grants Pass High School has to offer. So,
Michelle,
yeah, Nathan.
is that in a way similar where they have to earn their way in, or how do they get into that program?
It's not so much a earn your way in like it would be to Gladiola. If a kid's like, hey, I think this would be a better place for me. I know Rochelle's been making a ton of phone calls just to talk to families about this opportunity and their needs. A lot of those recommendations for the 8th moving to 9th graders came from teachers and counselors at the middle schools. Like, hey, I think this might be a great place for them to start rather than jumping them into, like I said, 1,700 kids, which can be super overwhelming.
As well as kiddos at Grants Pass High School, when they get here and are like, right, then they can transition as space allows to the junior high.
Yep.
Excellent. All right.
All right, thank you.
All right. Superintendent reports. Yeah, wanted to give you a quick update on summer school enrollment. You know, we've only been allocated the funds 3 weeks ago and scrambled like crazy to get folks hired and then engaged, and we already have 72, 73 elementary students signed up and over 20 junior high students signed up. So we're still optimistic that by the time it starts, we'll have more than 100 students in the program this summer. So both Trish and Susan were very excited that that is growing. So yeah, we were a little bit nervous that we were going to get this money and have actually 7 junior high kids show up, which was the original number we had. Yeah.
Can you share with us what the dollar amount was that was accepted?
We accepted 360,000. So and that covers all of our costs. In fact, it even employed a couple of SROs who were like, hey, we need some summer work. And we're like, we've got some summer work. So yeah, all the transportation. We do have a McKinney-Vento student in Cave Junction that will be transporting back and forth. So if given more time, we just spent more money, but with what we had, we did okay. One that, you know, we're always blessed each board evening with board meeting night with great food from Tara, and I wanted to let you know that the United States Department of Agriculture is honoring the work that she's done here at Grants Pass High. She has been she is going to receive an award for a Healthy Meals Incentive Program. And what she did is she submitted 3 scratch recipes that we make here in D7 to USDA. Then they go back and they cook it at their facilities and decide which ones are award winners. And so for spaghetti and homemade meat sauce with local Oregon beef from Salient Farms, homemade chicken noodle soup, and scratch made pumpkin bread, we've won awards and we're in the finals, and she I think is going to Vegas at some point on the USDA's dime to
Except for him.
yeah, see how that all works out. And I thought you'd want me to so many times I get to share all the gloom and doom news, and so it was nice that I got to share something fun. And now we have a very special moment for our friend Debbie Brownell. So Debbie is going to be leaving us after 24 years on the board and more than 30 years of service in the district. And Tom Brownell would like to say a few words.
I guess public comment is still open.
It is.
Chair Wilkins, Superintendent Sweeney, and board members, my name's Tom Brownell. I'm a resident of Grants Pass my whole life, and a alumni of District 7. And when I was a freshman in high school, my mom asked me if it would be okay with me if she ran for school board. And I thought, you know, I've had a wonderful experience with District 7 in all 13 years of being a student. And how could I not share my mom with the rest of the community? She's I can attest that her heart is with this school district and with this community. So happy to share that information and thank you all. Thank you. The entire team, we have a gift for you.
Wow. The flowers are so cute. We went to the park in the garden and found out this is flame flower. Flower. We got these so far. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. We are GP. That's where I come from. And is it a quilt?
It is a quilt. If you open it up, you will see all your schools.
Oh, wow. So, wow. Well, and I love all the schools. And I have a little speech.
Yes.
You wanna do it from here? Get up there.
I didn't do this without crying. It has been a joy and an honor to work with you for this great district. I have admired and appreciated the superintendents, the secretaries, district directors, administrators, teachers, classified employees, volunteers, parents, and students who have worked so hard over the years and moments. A belief in education, a strong desire to nurture full potential, success and integrity in every action and relationship underlies every law, policy, AR, committee meeting, classroom, opportunity, and activity. We are constantly evaluating data, surveys, and input, improving learning and expanding our knowledge base and adjusting our actions. It is amazing and wonderful to me, all the good things that are a result of the love in and for this district. Graduations, academics, athletics, music, theater, clubs are all the obvious successes. The sheer growth of expanding lives, the support and help offered in adversities and struggles, and the celebrations for accomplishments, large and small, are truly awesome. Thank you all, past, present, and future, for being an important part of my life.
Can we open the book? I want to.
Very strong.
It's got signatures in them too.
Oh, wow, so
That's
there's
your
the
current
administrators.
And there's you past superintendents. And then some else.
Oh, wow. This is the back, so this is the front.
Wow.
You gotta go stand in front, Debbie.
So, yeah. Silly, cool.
We need Sam over here.
Somebody.
Somebody.
I heard my dollar, aren't I?
It's gonna cost.
Good.
Wow. Wow.
You got an empty wall, Debbie?
That's
really. Gorgeous, and wonderful.
Yeah. Had to be something you can set out for.
Usually so circle. So cool. So there's the send it off.
That was probably something.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the artist. Oh, thank you.
Who did?
Brittany Hall, she's a
Oh.
teacher at South.
Super.
Very cool.
You said?
Yeah. She's a vice principal. That's vice.
No, that's not her. That's not.
MD
MD Young.
Now.
Unfortunately, we did not get it to Steve on time.
What?
We did not get it to Steve on time. So.
Yeah.
But.
Mine, right? Amazing.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Now I feel honest. Yeah. I'm just gonna say a little something to Debbie. It's truly an honor to serve alongside of you on the school board. You graciously took me under your wing. You shared your wisdom and guided me with patience and grace many times when I needed it. I've learned so much from you, but most of all, I learned the true meaning of class. Thank you. It's like, no more. Yes. You can keep that public comment. Okay, well, it just feels weird to be like, and so does anybody have any reports or concerns? Any board reports, special concerns?
This is an amazing district. And I will. And I will keep volunteering for first grade.
As long as you're in town.
The first year it was open. I've
What's
been
that?
doing that in the first year.
Wow.
So,
Very sweet. Okay. Hearing no board reports, future meeting and dates, and or recess.
Okay, so are we ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Okay, so you can push court gavel in, and it is back to general questions.
After comprehensive review of Superintendent Sweeney's performance, the Board of Education has completed the annual evaluation. The overall assessment indicates a strong performance rating of 3.41 out of 4, which falls between effective and accomplished across multiple professional standards and goal areas. The evaluation reflects Superintendent Sweeney's commitment to leading our district with particularly strong performance in areas of professional standards and strategic goals. While the majority of the ratings demonstrate effective to accomplished performance, we have identified a few areas for continued growth and development. The board appreciates the superintendent's dedication to our district's mission and looks forward to supporting ongoing improvement and success in the coming year. Thank you. Thank you. And good night.
I say her mic wasn't on.
Are we allowed to leave now?
Tanya. I
Yeah.
was just saying her mic wasn't on.
Adjourn.